Okay, I won't repeat my whole speech, but welcome everybody if you didn't hear us. And we're going to just do introductions right now, and we'll start from the left.
Jamie Tatry, member at large with the Accessibility Committee.
Good morning. I'm Heather Zenner, Manager of Administrative Services for the Regional District.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Hunter. I'm a constituency assistant to MP Gord Johns.
Hi, Kat Belisle, member at large for the Accessibility Committee.
Marcy.
Good morning, all. I am Marcy DeWitt. I'm the coordinator with the Alberni Clyquot Health Network and a guest and resource for the committee.
Dave.
Hi, everyone. My name's Dave Calver. I'm an occupational therapist working in Alberni currently.
Desiree.
Desiree McCleary, committee member.
And we'll go online. We'll start with Nicole.
Good morning, everybody. Nicole Uselman. I'm executive director of the Port Alberni Association for Community Living, and also a member of the committee.
Thank you, Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Darling, Director of Corporate Services for the City of Port Alberni.
Kristen.
Hi, I'm in here. Kristen Curdonahue, Administrative Assistant for the Regional District.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, and who am I missing here? Deanna.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Deanna Spencer, a committee member, and I've been living with MS for 20 years.
And Deanna. Amber.
I am Amber Severington, a committee member as well.
And Sam. I should be looking at the screen in front of me, not way up there. I can't see the names up there.
Good morning, everyone. Sam Turcott, Assistant Deputy Minister for Accessibility with the BC Public Service. Pleased to join you.
Welcome, everyone. So we're going to do approval of the agenda. Someone want to make a motion? Okay. Second by, moved by Jamie and second by Desiree. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Next is declarations, conflicts of interest. Anybody have any conflicts of interest? Anything? No? Okay. Let's go to Heather.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome everyone. And I'm really happy that we have three excellent presenters today. I think we're going to have a good discussion. You're probably going to get a lot of questions from our committee members, which is great. I just wanted to share a little bit about our accessibility committee. So our committee is a joint committee between two local governments, so the City of Port Alberni and the Regional District. Our committee formed in early 2024. And we're progressing on the implementation of our accessibility plans. We're making some improvements and definitely being guided by the members of our accessibility committee. So I would like to introduce Sam Turcott. So Sam is the Assistant Deputy Minister from the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. So I'll hand it over to you, Sam.
Thank you so much. Good morning, members. It's an absolute pleasure to join you this morning. I'm pleased to participate from my office on the territory of the Lekwungen speaking people in what is today known as Victoria. As Assistant Deputy Minister for Accessibility with BC's Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, I have both the privilege and pleasure of supporting the provincial government's development and now implementation of the Accessible British Columbia Act. I am incredibly heartened and grateful to all of you in the room and on the line, as well as your counterparts in communities all over the province who are supporting work implementing this legislation in communities. I actually started my work with the provincial government specifically to support the development of the Act we worked following province-wide public consultation to develop this legislation through 2020 and into 2021. The Act received royal assent in 2021, and our team henceforth has really been working to transform the objectives and aspirations of the legislation into action in communities in BC. A couple points that members in this room will be well aware of, I think. There's more than 1.1 million British Columbians around the province with some form of disability. We know that through the 2022 Statistics Canada survey on disability. We also know that those folks live in communities all over BC and have a variety of lived experience, ranging from physical disabilities to sensory disabilities, mental health, cognitive and intellectual disabilities. We also know that those individuals are living in communities and interacting with organizations with varying mandates of varying sizes and capacities. And our work through the implementation of legislation has really been framed around how to effectively square that circle and support people with disabilities to be more engaged in policies respecting accessibility that impact them, and also doing the best that we can to meet organizations and communities where they're at, and to provide a framework to do this work in a structured and progressive manner. One of the first actions under the legislation that our team took on was supporting governments, and by government I mean the provincial governments, implementation of Part 3 of the legislation. That included the development of an accessibility plan for the province, establishment of BC's Provincial Accessibility Committee in 2021, and the adoption of a public feedback tool for government by which members of the public could communicate feedback on the accessibility of its programs and services. Subsequently, we supported the development of the Accessible BC regulation, which members of this committee will be very familiar with. That regulation identifies more than 750 public sector organizations for the purposes of Part 3 of the Act, and hands those organizations that same bundle of obligations. More recently, our team has also initiated work to support BC's Provincial Accessibility Committee in the development of the first accessibility standards under Part 4 of the legislation. The legislation allows for the development of accessibility standards in a range of different areas and allows those standards to be brought into law through regulation of the Lieutenant Governor and Council. And I'm happy to report that actually just this past fall, in September, our Provincial Accessibility Committee approved a set of recommendations which will go forward for consideration by the minister responsible for the Act. Additionally, I'm pleased to report, because the province's initial Accessible BC plan was a 3-year accessibility plan, we've been hard at work engaging with our counterparts all across government ministries on a refresh to a second iteration of the Accessible BC plan. We are, in my opinion, very close to landing that piece of work, and I anticipate that that second iteration of the Accessible BC plan will be published in early 2026. I'll pause. I'm really happy to take any and all questions from the room, and so grateful for your time having me here this morning. I'm an open book, and I'll do my best to answer your questions as they might arise, and just really pleased again to make everyone's acquaintance in the room and on the line today. And I'll turn it back over to the chair to assist with any conversation.
Thank you, Sam. Anybody have any questions for him? Go ahead.
Sam, can you speak about the provincial feedback tool that you mentioned? Like how do folks accessing provincial services highlight any accessibility concerns or barriers that they face? How does that work? Because I know we have a feedback tool on our website, but it isn't well used. And I think that's because people don't necessarily know about it. They might get frustrated with something, but the frustration is probably the end of it, or they might speak about it on social media but not use the correct tools. So could you share what your tool looks like?
It's a fair comment. We've received a few hundred questions on average through the tool in a given year. I'm very cognizant that that is not nearly representative of the large population of persons with disabilities around the province. When our team receives feedback through the tool, it is our job to help to triage that feedback out to other ministries. You know, that my view with respect to accessibility feedback tools is that some of the processes for attracting feedback and disseminating feedback within the organization is really going to vary depending on the size and complexity of the organization. Obviously, with the province, you're dealing with 23 different ministries, as well as a range of agencies. And, you know, really a significant part of our efforts are to make sure that we are communicating that feedback effectively to program areas that need to hear it. And then additionally, the other use for the feedback tool, which we have found really, really helpful, is in the development of and refresh of those accessibility plans. We think that it's really important, not just that our team at the Accessibility Directorate put up our hands and say, you know, these are the priorities, but we think that we need to be engaging with our counterparts across ministries based on the actual feedback that we're receiving from people in communities. We run support on that tool pretty lean. So we would certainly consider and are happy when folks have time to promote it and help to share information about it. The actual proactive promotion of the tool is subject to capacity over time. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? No? All right. I would like to thank you, Alex, for, do you have anything else you want to say or anything to conclude, or you're good?
Just thank you again for having me. Appreciate the time and attention of the members this morning.
Super, thank you. You're welcome to stay. I hope you're staying and listening on. So next is Alex Hunter, Consistency Assistant Office of Gord Johns, MP for Courtenay Alberni, regarding the disability tax credit.
Yes, hi everyone. Am I audible on the computer as well?
Can everybody hear? Yes?
Okay, I'm seeing nods. So yeah, I'm just here on behalf of MP Johns to present on the disability tax credit, which is a federal benefit that we've seen under subscription on from constituents, and we find a lot of people aren't super aware of it. And so we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So first, this just is a photo of a man named Thomas who attended one of our workshops last year. And when we met him again in the fall, he shared how the disability tax credit had changed his life, because it is tens of thousands of dollars that people who are often unable to work or unable to work at full capacity are able to receive. So the disability tax credit is a non-refundable tax credit, which means that you can't, if you're earning less than the amount that you're receiving the tax credit, you can't pull the rest out in order to spend it. But it is a lot of people are eligible for it, and it is quite substantial. It's a little less than $10,000 a year that you could be receiving, and an additional $5,000 if you have a dependent with a disability. So the eligibility is based on severe and prolonged impairment in one of the following categories, or a more limited impairment in two, which accumulate and having the same impact together. And the way that the government defines a severe and prolonged impairment is if it's inhibiting your everyday life. And a challenge for some people, for example, people with multiple sclerosis, where symptoms can be cyclical and not consistent, is that they may feel that they're not eligible for this. But what I'll say to that is we have never seen someone get rejected on that basis. So even if it's not every day, if it is a regular effect on your life, you should still qualify. And yeah, here's just again the description of the description for a market restriction, a prolonged impairment. Basically, if it is an injury that you've recently received, if it is something through which you're going through physical therapy but are rapidly approaching recovery from, you won't qualify for this, but for prolonged impairments, you are. And again, here's just a little bit more of the description about what does not qualify. And I'll provide this presentation for everybody afterward as well, and a lengthier version of it. So to apply, you have to fill out form T2201 and submit it to the CRA. Some people have been informed that they qualify for the DTC from the federal government, but it is very inconsistent. Most of the time, people are not informed of it, and so they don't necessarily know that they're eligible. There are two parts to form T2201. The first part you fill out yourself, that's the majority of it. And the second part has to be filled out by a medical practitioner. A lot of people come to our office saying that, they can't get in with a doctor, they're not sure how to get this filled out. Something that we really emphasize is that it does not need to be a doctor. It can be anybody who works as a medical practitioner in a field related to your disability. So if your disability relates to your vision, an optometrist qualifies. If it is cognitive, a psychologist. If it relates to your ability to speech language pathologist qualifies. It just has to be in a related field, but aside from that, there's a great deal of flexibility about who is able to fill out the second part of the form for you. Another big thing that comes up is that the disability tax credit can be transferred. So even if an individual is not earning enough to get the full quantity of tax credit, so just a little shy of 10,000, as long as a family member of theirs or someone that they depend on for clothing, food, housing, or other basic necessities, as long as they are working, they can receive the remainder of the tax credit. We really encourage people to apply for the tax credit and be willing to transfer it, even if they aren't sure that they qualify that way, because there are a lot of people in this constituency who may not feel super comfortable admitting that they depend on someone else for basic necessities. But something that we emphasize to people in that situation is just, this isn't necessarily for you. This is for the loved one that is helping out. And it can really go a long way for families in the Alberni Valley and Oceanside. So again, this is what the most recent tax year, which you could earn in the disability amount supplement for children in the non-refundable tax credit. And if you are eligible for the DTC, then you can also receive additional benefits from the federal government. The RDSP, the Registered Disability Savings Plan, is something for usually dependents that they can begin investing in. Government matches your investment into it, and then it represents an alternative savings plan to like a pension plan or an RSP, something like that. It just allows you to save money for a child or a dependent for when they retire or when you're no longer able to care for them. Then there's the Canada Workers Benefit, the Child Disability Benefit, and the new one this year is the Canada Disability Benefit, which just started this summer in its current form. So started in June 2025, and as long as you've been approved for the DTC, you're eligible for it. And it's not a ton, it's only about $200 a month, but it is still additional to the other funding that you're receiving. Additionally, there is no eligibility loss if you receive provincial disability benefits. There is, you can receive both. They don't disqualify each other, unlike some benefits. And with the disability benefit, as well as with the disability tax credit, you can backfile for them. So the disability benefit, you can backfile to June 2025 because that's when it started. But for the disability tax credit, you can actually backfile a full 10 years. And that part is refundable. So you can backfile for the last 10 years. You could be qualified for tens of thousands of dollars that you haven't been receiving that you can now receive. And if you've had your disability for longer than 10 years and you should have been qualifying, then we encourage you to do it right away, because once that 10-year gap is gone, you no longer qualify for any of that. So you could be losing thousands of dollars by not applying before the end of the tax year. And then you can apply online for the tax form. And then the last thing that we really emphasize is that you can also claim medical expenses directly in your tax filings. A lot of people aren't aware of the extent that you can, but travel for medical needs, direct payment made to doctors, prescriptions and prosthetics, anything like that will qualify and you can get tax reprieve on. So we just encourage people to make sure that they're listing everything that they possibly could qualify for in their tax filings. And on all of this, if there's any questions that anyone that you work with has about any of this, if they're not sure about these forms, if they're not sure about filing them, or if they get rejected from any of this, then what we encourage is for people to reach out to our office, because we can then work with the CRA to make sure that our constituents are being appropriately represented, and often it isn't the end just because someone got rejected for one of these tax credits. Usually we are able to talk with the CRA and clear things up.
That's really interesting. Just, thank you. There's a quick question I have is, what if the doctor doesn't want to sign it? And so, is there a percentage of a disability? I mean, some places have percentages, you know, if you're 34%, 100%, is there?
Yeah, so something that we found is that when doctors aren't comfortable signing it, it's often not because they don't necessarily feel that the individual qualifies, but because of the burden that they're dealing with right now, because it is an additional burden. GORD has proposed federally legislation that will make it so that you automatically qualify for the disability tax credit as long as you've qualified provincially, just so that it's not as much red tape for doctors, but it is something that we've heard about. And something that we found for some constituents in that case is to go to a nurse instead, to go to urgent care, to find another medical channel where that gets you interfacing with a medical practitioner who can then make a decision on it, because unfortunately there's no channel to appeal a doctor's decision directly, but a different medical practitioner can reach a different decision about your file.
Okay, so the other part is, I know people who are on partial disability, right? And they've been, you know, 50%, or they've been, that's what their disability is, or 35 or something like that. Does that include that, or not?
So that would be separate from this because that's provincial. And so the federal one would be applied for separately and would be received separately at their determination. And so none of it goes to the same system.
Okay, thank you. Kat?
Yeah, so also there's a age cutoff, I think it's 49, right? Where you cannot, is it 49 or what is the age cutoff?
There is an age cutoff. That's for the registered disability savings plan.
Okay.
The disability tax credit you're still eligible for after 49.
So, so this one you can be over 49?
Yeah, that's right.
Is this one where if you pass away, you cannot pass those savings that you've contributed to your children or to anyone else, and the government takes those savings back? Or is that with the other one?
That's with the registered disability savings plan, I believe, which has it has two subparts, and one of the subparts operates that way. I believe the registered disability savings grant operates that way. The disability tax credit, because you're not investing anything in, there's no payout afterward. It's just a reduction of the cost of your tax payment each year. And the Canadian Disability Benefit as well, you're not paying anything into it, so it just ceases upon death.
Sorry, so this is the one is if you have, like, for me as a disabled adult, if I had, since I'm not considered a dependent, but I don't make enough income, I don't really benefit from this one, right?
Yes, so if your income isn't high enough to receive to pay any income tax, or then you won't be benefiting from the tax credit. However, if you have any other individual who supports you in any capacity, then they can receive the tax credit. And additionally, if you receive the tax credit, then you also qualify for the other benefits from the government. So you qualify for the Canadian Disability Benefit, and also for Canadian dental care, for the disability level of the Canadian Dental Care Plan, and other similar benefits.
I was under the impression when I applied for this for my parents that I would have to be like living with my parents to qualify as a dependent, even though that they do like help me.
Yeah, so we've heard that before, but not for the transferable portion of the DTC itself. It doesn't require you to live with them because it doesn't actually require you to be a dependent of theirs. It only requires that they support you with what they define as a basic essential. So food, clothing, or housing.
Sorry, one question when you said that. What is the portion? Because you said there was a portion of that. Like the portion that's transferable, is it full portion or no, because she doesn't live with her parents?
I believe it's the full portion that the government says that you qualify for can be transferred over to them. It's up to 100%. But I am not sure in that instance what the government would define you as qualifying for. I believe that it depends as well on like the degree of support on what your income and the nature of your disability as well.
Anything else, Kat? No, Desiree, you're good. Okay, and Sam.
I'll just offer two interventions for the room. I used to work on the Registered Disability Savings Plan program at Disability Alliance BC in a previous career. I'm also legally blind and a holder of a Registered Disability Savings Plan. So this one is very close to my heart. First, the categories for eligibility with the disability tax credit are structured such that there are a couple of categories of disability that are a little bit more clear-cut and easy to establish eligibility. Because I'm legally blind, you know, it's really just, is my visual acuity below a certain threshold? Similar if you're using a mobility device, oftentimes eligibility can be quite straightforward for a medical practitioner to support. And unfortunately, disabilities that are a little bit more qualitative in their impacts on day-to-day life can take a little bit more work, and oftentimes those are the ones where it's a really great idea to go in and get a little bit of help from an advocate or from your MLA's office if it's available. The other point that I'll offer for the room, if you've looked at the RDSP in the past and dismissed it because of income circumstances or family circumstances, the introduction of the Canada Disability Benefit makes it such that I would really strongly encourage folks to take another look, just because it is a quite significant new measure to support working age individuals with disabilities with lower incomes. So we'll just provide those comments as food for thought as folks consider what to take away from today's meeting.
Thanks, Sam. And yeah, just in closing, I just want to say this presentation, well, the lengthened version of it was something that the government used to distribute out federally. They used to go around doing presentations on it. That got cut under the Harper administration. And so a disgruntled worker sent the presentation to us, which is why we have it now. And so we like to get it everywhere. Like we want to make sure that everyone can see this presentation. The full length one is like 30 slides. So we would encourage anyone to reach out to our office. We can send it by mail or by email to anyone. And we will be doing full workshops, like hour-long workshops on this in January in each community so that we can make sure that constituents are aware of this.
So question on that is that when you're talking about each community, are you doing it like renting a hall and making that presentation and advertising? Because I think it's really important, especially in any community, not just ours.
Yeah. So we'll be running town halls. Last time we used the Friendship Center. I predict we'll probably be there again for Port Alberni. And we'll be advertising it in the news in advance, but we'll also reach out. And if anyone wants to reach out to our office, we can make sure that you're in the loop just so that stakeholders can be aware that that's coming up once we formally announce a date for it.
Excellent. I would love to see this presentation at a city council meeting. Would be great. So it would be great if you could reach out to Sarah, for instance, at City Hall. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a few comments. Alex, thank you for the presentation. You're clearly well versed in this complicated application process. I recently supported somebody in applying for the disability tax credit, and it was a lesson in frustration and yeah, it was a year-long experience that could be very challenging for people to work through. My experience was that the family doctor wasn't overly familiar with the forms. And for that reason, the application failed. We resubmitted, we signed in the wrong place. The application had to be, go back to the starting line, adding another 4 months to the process. Additionally, we ended up having to access a psychologist to fill out the paperwork properly. And eventually we were successful, but it is a long process. Calling the government for assistance is also can be challenging with wait times on the phone call. For folks living in smaller communities, accessing specialists can be challenging, and there's additional cost to travel, but also for the paperwork to be filled out. But regardless, it is an excellent benefit. You talk about thousands of dollars, and it truly is thousands of dollars. And it opens up the ability to open a disability tax credit, and there's additional thousands of dollars that the federal government will contribute. So thank you for sharing this, and thank you for doing this work. And we'd be happy to share information about the workshops in January and get that out to the broader community. Thank you.
Nicole.
Hi, thank you. Just a comment. So a lot of individuals that are supported through our organization, specifically children that are aging out, we have our director that's often helping people to complete the paperwork that Heather was just talking about. And I understand that you're going to go to the Friendship Center, but I wonder if there would be any merit to speaking to the high school and getting family members of children that are aging out so people understand what those changes mean for their children once they are leaving school and they're turning 18. That might be something that's beneficial, and someone who might be available to fill in the gaps, because I know our director helps many families a year off the corner of her desk completing this rather rigorous paperwork, and people are really lost in it, I believe. So I just wanted to maybe make that suggestion.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you. We'll reach out to them.
Go ahead.
While that conversation was going on, I just noted you nodding in agreement. Is there any side on the government that's looking to make this process easier for people?
Well, just GORD has introduced private members bill to do that, to make to align the provincial and federal requirements so that the people who qualify provincially, which there are a lot more people who end up on the system provincially than there are in BC who end up on the system federally. Just to make sure that when you qualify provincially, you already qualify federally, so that you don't have to go to doctors twice. And overall, just to lighten the burden for doctors so that they're more receptive to this, and to clear up that red tape. And I believe it was the Canadian Association of Physicians that had recommended that to our office as well.
Maybe it's time to look at the PWD application process too, because that's a bear. That's almost inhumane for folks that have any sort of cognitive challenge.
Kat, and then we'll go to Deanna.
I believe anyone who does have PWD will now automatically have their taxes filed through the federal government that Carney has enacted, and then they will automatically get approved for this, right? Yeah.
So they get assistance with filing, but they don't automatically qualify for the DTC currently.
Don't they? I was under the impression that if you are a recipient of PWD and you are like that, you will be approved essentially for this. Because I was given a letter saying like I'm approved for this just because I am a member, because I do have PWD.
We haven't heard anything about that. I'll look into it. Because yeah, the last we had heard from the federal government was that I think there were some matters with aligning provincial and federal standards. But yeah, I'll look into that for sure.
Yeah, it's just like on my service account, I just received a letter saying that I am now entitled to the tax credit.
Okay, Deanna.
Okay, so first I just wanted to make a comment that when I was applying for the disability tax credit many years ago, even with having MS for 20 years, I was denied 3 times. So it's not an easy process. It's not straightforward. It doesn't matter, you know, you guys can say that it is, but it's not. So anybody that's helping, you know, if you have a family or a friend that's applying for it, just tell them not to give up. Just be persistent. Because not just myself being denied. I've had other people denied as well, I've heard. So that was the one thing, is that I did not have a smooth process applying for the disability tax credit. I did have a question though about the Canada, the new one that just came out. Now, if I actually work full-time from home as an employment counselor, so am I still eligible to apply for this because I am working and do make an income?
Yep, absolutely. You should still qualify. And if your disability is still impacting your everyday life, you should still qualify for the benefits.
Okay, and thank you for answering that question. And then just another thing about the PWD, Dave, that you were saying about the process. We do actually have a PWD clinic in Port Alberni, at the old shelter. I don't know if many of you know about it, but we do have Pat Kermeen, who is a nurse practitioner and social worker. We do have a doctor there, and we also have an outreach income assistance worker that will help with the applications. So if you know of anybody that needs to apply for it, they do them at the Old Friendship Center, which is kitty corner to, I think, John Paul Catholic School.
Thank you. And Kat?
I was told Pat Kermeen has retired.
Oh, that's sad. I didn't hear that. That's sad news. So thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Heather. Oh, let's go. Go, Jim.
I was just wondering, Alex, I heard you say about like there's something that Gord Johnson's put forward to kind of like build this connection with the provincial government and the PWD, sort of like coordinating that. So I was really actually more wanting to point this towards Sam. Like, is there anything that you've heard from the Ministry of Social Development about that sort of coordination piece happening? And maybe you're able to provide a bit of insight into that. I realize you're not exactly maybe in that specific area, but if you'd heard anything.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think if there's anything that might be useful. I mean, the ministry has provided year-end funding to a couple of organizations over time to support folks navigating the process of accessing disability tax credit. I know that the point about deemed eligibility for Canada Disability Benefit for individuals who have established PWD designation has been an ongoing point of discussion over the years. And in my view, unfortunately, we haven't gotten there yet.
Thank you.
Sorry, Kat, I'll just go back to Kat first.
Just one quick thing, if anyone does know someone who needs help, the Disability Alliance of BC is based out of Vancouver and they help people apply.
Heather?
Alex, I just had a question. The Canada Disability Benefit, is that income tested or is it if you qualify, you qualify?
I'll have to confirm just since it's newer than the last time I did this presentation.
It is income tested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions? Another thing, I do want to add the presentation for the city, but also the ACRD board, because there's so many people that sit on the board that represents different regions in the regional district. And I think it's really important so that it goes back to their community. And I think this is really important. And there's a lot of frustration out of people on applying and the whole, and there's people that can't comprehend what they're reading because it becomes very technical. And when you're already frustrated, it's really hard to get back into and understand what's going on. So I think that's really important, Heather, and I think it should be presented to the ACRD board. This is important. Yes, Heather.
No, I was just gonna say just before I forgot as well, just on the topic of the complexity of it and how people get rejected, how there can be month-long waits sometimes. We can't expedite filings normally, but if someone has a housing concern, if they've got a health concern, if there's a reason why they're in a more vulnerable position that may require them to get a response back quicker, in those instances we can push the government to expedite those filings. And as well, again, if anyone gets rejected, of course, our office can appeal it for them. But yeah, that's just something I would say as well, is if you are waiting several months and if someone is looking down the barrel of not being able to pay their lease or not being able to afford food or a housing change, something like that, do reach out to us because we can pressure the government to get them a response a little bit quicker given the circumstances.
It's really hard too. A lot of people have a lot of pride, so to get them out there and do that. I mean, the other thing is there pamphlets that we can get copies of and have out for the public if they're interested.
Yeah, we can send one over to you.
I just had a question for the committee members. Do you think people are aware of the disability tax credit? Like, are you in your work or supporting people? Do you think that they're aware of the disability tax credit? No?
No.
No.
No, and I think, I mean, I have a little guy who's 5 who we collected for him. And I would say like the majority of our friends that have kiddos too, or like that I know didn't know about it. Like I only really knew about it because I went and we have really good accountants and they're like, oh, you need to be applying for this. I'm like, oh, what is this? And all of a sudden this money shows up. I'm like, oh, everyone needs to know about this. But I would say even for me, like for someone like me, where I find that I just figure it out, like I just like you're going through all the avenues, like it's a lot of work for someone like me. So I definitely see there's individuals or parents who just can't comprehend and they give up. Like even if there's $10,000 at stake, like they just don't have the capacity to do it, which is really sad. And that's probably why there's lots of money unclaimed, right? But I would say in like that, like disability era of like kids, I would say a lot of people don't know about it.
I would definitely agree with that. And there's a lot of frustration. There's people that don't have computers, I mean, they have no device. So I would agree that there's a lot of people out there that don't have that knowledge. Kat?
I am a member of support groups for people who have chronic ill diseases where fatigue is the primary symptom, and it's so overwhelming to navigate all the paperwork that there's all these actual predatory people that want to take advantage of there's actually predators that will say that they'll help you get on disability or help you get home support, like things that people really need, and people will spend money, you know, it's horrible.
I would agree with that one too. I know people who charge like 10-15% of whatever you get, and there is a charge out there. Okay, and Amber.
Related to that tax credit, I'm just wondering if you know why when kids are approved, how come it doesn't follow them to adulthood and has to start all over again with applying?
That's a good question. It's not something really that I can give an answer for because except to say like it should follow them. But nothing gets streamlined with the federal government where it can instead be a little bit more convoluted. So it's just one of those things where we do, I mean, we encourage people to like keep up applying for anything, to check in with our office if they're unsure about anything. But I mean, there are people who get lost because of things like that because they don't reapply, they don't notify the government of a change of circumstances, situations like that.
Anything else, Amber?
It was just more of a thought or curiosity. Was Gord had any thought of putting that forward as like you're talking about private members bill for kids to just continue on their services into adulthood without having to reapply?
It is not something that we have thought of before for a private members bill, but it's something I'll bring back to him now that Gord is health critic as of a few months ago as well for the NDP. So this is now his portfolio directly. So.
Thanks.
Excellent. Sam?
It's possible the last point is a misconception. I'm not aware of any reason based in policy that a child receiving the disability tax credit would necessarily have to reestablish eligibility as an adult. However, it's important to remember that the disability tax credit is issued for a particular tax year. So the CRA, depending on the nature of an individual's disability, may approve for just a given tax year if they only believe that it's certain that the disabling condition will continue for a year. And then in other cases, they'll deem eligibility for 10 years or an indefinite duration if they feel sufficiently confident that the disability will continue. So unfortunately, it's not highly predictable and is really a decision that's made at the policy level within the CRA by the folks who are adjudicating those applications.
There is an element with that of because parents tend to be the ones who are filing for the DTC, and then when children reach adulthood, they enter the market, then they're filing their own tax returns. And so it isn't necessarily them who's no longer receiving the benefit, but it is their parents who are no longer directly receiving the benefit, and then the children don't apply for it. And so there's where the sort of gap is.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm just thinking back over my career clinically, and I've worked in pediatrics and adults. And the families, when their kids come to 18, they talk about it be like falling off a cliff of supports. Well-resourced for pediatrics, well-serviced, outreach programs, wheelchair clinics. It just all happens in pediatrics. It's fully funded. But when they turn 18, it all just ends. And so then they get kicked into the PWD programs. Now, if they are, say we have profound disabilities where they are reliant on care for all aspects of their world, they go into the CLBC process. They then have case managers that will apply for all of these things for them. Most of these individuals end up living in group homes just because families inevitably can't care for these individuals through their lifetime, right? Parents get older. But there's a huge percentage that end up in semi-structured care that are not case managed by a government organization and then have to navigate this PWD process by themselves. And it's hugely punitive. Like, and it is hugely obstructive for anybody without 100% cognitive functioning, some formal education to even be able to navigate the questions, let alone fill them out at 20 something pages. Right? There has to be some fundamental change in the way these governments, yours, look at people with disabilities, as opposed to having to scrabble and beg for a justification of our basic needs. It has to be seen as a human right. And the way that people are treated in Canada is below standard, right? When they do get PWD, it's poverty level existence. If they earn $300 over top of their trying to get ahead, it's reduced from their PWD. The whole system is designed to keep this population in poverty. And until we can, like it's easy to apply, but it's a very privileged position to say that, because the vast majority of people I work with have no capacity to apply, or nobody to represent them and advocate for them even. Right? There's a lot of people with disabilities in this country that live in relative isolation and have nobody really fighting for them. Tax credit at that point, they're like, I understand that there's efforts to try and streamline the transition, but at some point we have to have a real relook at what does disability mean to this population and what does support mean, because the government's not doing it. Sorry to be a downer. Sorry.
No, not at all. I mean, there's so many elements of that as well. Something that Gord advocates for as well is non-market housing and huge expansion of it, because fundamentally these supports, they need to be existing on all levels. That can't just be you know, a stipend received each month or a tax benefit. It has to be support on each level of both in income and then on the outcomes that people are facing in various capacities of their lives. Absolutely.
It'd be great to have a just once a year, a session at each community where we will help you. We will answer all your questions. We will help you fill out your forms and understand how to fill them out, because there's so many people obviously have issues filling out forms and stuff like that one way or another. And it would be great. I know the government's been cutting back but I think this is important. So
Absolutely. And I mean, something that I do want to say is, I mean, you know, we're not the government in our office since we're in opposition. And what that means is, well, we don't necessarily have as much that we can do to apply pressure to them directly. We are a little bit more free to engage in processes like that because we are not restricted in the same way. So I mean, that's something I'm going to bring back to Kim, who's our caseworker, about is running another workshop like that, where it's just on the ground. We set up a table, you know, and we help out people in filling out the forms.
I like that. I think that's really important. And I know so many people who have been so frustrated just trying to fill out forms. And then they go online and ask, hey, you know, and you have to press 1, press 2, press 3. And then by the time you get to that person, you have to wait half an hour, if not longer. And then if they call you back and it's a no, it's the PTSD kicks in because that person phones again. And it's like, I don't want to answer that phone, right? So I mean, there has to be an easier way. And waiting, you know, I hate calling someone and going, you got to press 1, 2, 3, 4 and get to where it is. And 2 hours later, I've been on the phone on like 5 hours one time, and it really is frustrating. I would do other things that carry the phone. But the thing is, I can understand how other people feel and the frustration. So yes, Heather. Kat, sorry, it was you. Sorry.
Is there some way that the accessibility committee could talk about creating a position that Pat Carmine used to hold before she retired? She volunteered, but she was this lovely lady who would help people with disability forms, the disability tax credit. People actually don't even know what is available to them. There's rent subsidies, like the CECL program, things that people need. Is that like even something that could be possible?
Heather? it's certainly not in terms of like a staff position of the local government. But I think the committee and the local governments can do, information sharing about these sessions that are put on and advocate for people to attend. I think that's kind of probably more of the limit that what we could do.
What if we could ask the Disability Alliance if we could get a copy of their slides, or like have them attend one of our accessibility committee meetings?
Yeah, I think that's a great invite to extend.
And that's why I also suggest that making a presentation at the city as well as the ACRD level. And the reason is that it's all streamlined and it will get out there to the public. So, and it's recorded too, as well as this one, right? So I think that would be really important. And even if we could share it on social media, the video and this, or the slides and that, and I think, and link it to the city's web page as well as the ACRD web page, which would really help too. So I think, I believe that's quite important. Anybody else have questions? No, I think it was great. The presentation, I believe, Alex, that we really needed to hear that. And hopefully there's people out there that will watch, and also the people on this board go out and voice what's out there for people with disabilities. It's really important. Okay, so thank you. And let's go to David Calver, founder of Society for Inclusion and Participation regarding occupational therapy and accessibility in the ACRD.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. I don't have a fancy presentation. Unfortunately, I'm a full-time working occupational therapist right now here in Port Alberni with home and community care. I've been asked to give a little update, which I do have some updates on staffing in home and community care for occupational therapists. So there are two lines that exist here in Port Alberni. One's a 1.0 full-time and one's a 0.7. So there is a person that hasn't been employed and is going to do that 0.7, but over 4 days of the week. She's going to drive back and forth from Comox, but she's returning to practice and she's quite keen to take on this line. So that will mean that 0.7, there'll be somebody here predictably 4 days a week on into the future, which should help tremendously. The line that I'm filling currently, I'm here temporarily. I run a not-for-profit called SEEP Global Adventures, where I run whitewater kayak programs for youth with spina bifida and spinal cord injuries in Mexico and Central America, and hopefully South America and Africa, and hope to go around the world. So I come back here and work when I need to refill the bank accounts. But there's also been conversation with the managers about bringing me back here on a more regular basis, because historically this valley has had a lot of trouble with particularly wheelchair provision and getting people the mobility devices that they need in a timely manner. Historically, that has had lots of reasons. The positions here are difficult to fill. There's no doubt about that. But that seems to be changing. There's now a 1.0 full-time not occupational therapist that will be filling the Tofino Yuki position. So that community now has physio and OT in the community. Our physio route cadre here is full. There's 2 physios that work, and then there'll be this 0.7, and hopefully they'll be able to fill my line as a 1.0. There are apparently applicants. But there's been a problem historically here with not just the available therapists in order to provide these wheelchairs, but also with vendors coming in from outside the community that for some reason view Alberni as remote. There's been a lot of turnover in terms of their reps and who they send out in the communities. They swap them all between companies, and they seem to be highly motivated right now. So the representation of the 3 major mobility companies is better in Alberni than when I arrived here in April. Will that continue? The problem that has always happened is that the larger center in Nanaimo, because what's happened is all of the companies have received the MEP program, which is the equipment provision program. It's a short-term loan program for people that need everything from hospital beds to bath benches to walkers to wheelchairs. Right? That's supposed to give us the time to find their permanent funding to move on to get their own equipment. But there's also an extension option, right? So people have been extending, and I think Alberni is suffering from the fact that Nanaimo is just absorbing all the oxygen in the room, right? With the aging populations, they're just so busy that they're not getting out to the satellite parts of their area of coverage. The good news is that these vendors are under contract to Island Health. They are paid for their services to come to these communities. And so we've been reminding them of that recently, and we're having better results. We're hoping that it's just going to get better and better and better for Alberni in the future when evaluations for mobility devices are done more regularly and we have a constant supply, that they'll be able to justify their trips because they'll be making their profits. I also, in my career, I've done lots of accessibility auditing work. I've worked with the resort municipality of Whistler, getting them ready for the 2010 Olympic Games. Through that, we also created an accessible playground in the metal grounds. I've worked with Campbell River and Courtney on their public assessment of the parklands as well as the city center and how they can move their accessibility plans forward. I think an important thing, if this organization is looking to move accessibility forward, you can only do that if you've had a comprehensive evaluation of what are the weaknesses and what are the areas that need attention. Because retrofitting accessibility is extremely expensive. And what you're starting to see in this community, I have not done a formal, I've just been rolling around here since April in a wheelchair mostly. So the infrastructure here is not that bad, right? You have basic curb cuts, etc., but they're also very dated, time stamped in when they were created. So we're having cement failures in infrastructure that way. But also there are no representations in the curb cuts for people with visual limitations. There's no crossing signs that are auditory or signals that are auditory. There's few. So there's a big step up to move towards being truly accessible, not just to wheeled mobility, but to people with a variety of disabilities. That includes the rumble strips at the edge, so people with canes will recognize when they're coming to a corner. All of those things can be retrofitted. But again, if you're going to do this as a city council, you need to end up with a list of what are your, your capital projects and where can you proportion your money, because you're not going to be able to do it all at once. As soon as you expand to the parks, like there's so much beautiful parkland around this area and there's so many great resources. That's a completely different philosophy in terms of accessibility, whether it's front country, mid country, or back country, right? And what are the responsibilities of municipalities to provide those three levels of access in the wilds? You have a beautiful opportunity here with the graded rail trail that goes from Beaver Creek, I think, up to the candy store at the top of the hill, right? I've heard that it's 3% grade. It's an old rail trail, and it's a possibility for development if you're looking for places for people to get out. But I do recommend to you that if you want to move accessibility forward in Port Alberni in a meaningful way, that you first have to do an inventory of what you currently have and what you currently don't, and what are the priorities for moving it forward in a systematic sort of way. Because it's spread enough and it's big enough that if you try and do it bit by bit, you'll get lost in the projects. It needs a master plan. Does anybody have any questions? The other part of my time here is we've been working with the elders of this community, mostly at home and community care. There's a tremendous population here in Port Alberni that were contractors to the foresters, the forestry companies. They have no pensions, they have no insurance, they have bodies that have been thoroughly used up and broken, have high amounts of pain, and they have no resources, right? They don't qualify for PWD. When they go in and PWD ends at 65, the day you turn 65, your disability just goes away, apparently, and you become medical services only. For a PWD submission right now, if I were to request a wheelchair from PWD, we're looking at 3 to 6 months to hear back questions, not approval or disapproval, but questions to re-justify. MSO, it's up to 9 months. So if you're needing mobility, like if you're needing a wheelchair as your primary form of mobility, you're looking at multiple months of evaluation and trials, and then multiple months to, I'm working with Kat. I've been working with Kat since April, right? And she's been winning for years. And I know 9 other people like Kat in this community that I'm trying to do the same thing right now. So there has to be some way that the government is able to reduce these wait times for essential mobility, right? It's if I request a backbench or if I request a wheelchair, they take the same time. They're not the same level of need, right? There's no triage method to do priority reviews of mobility necessities or safety or bed mobility or feeding or, you know, the myriad of levels of disability.
And all these services, like all these providers that you're wanting to, like, that are busy in Nanaimo, they're also providing all pediatrics.
Yeah,
Like,
so
like mobility,
exactly.
CD mobility, like they're seeing outreach therapy 1,000
Exactly.
times. Like they're busy with like
Yes.
80 plus kids on the caseload there too. So
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, it's just spread way too thin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, you know, we're working for Island Health, a really good employer, but there's no communication from Island Health to the Canadian population or the BC population about when do you start to pay for your health care. Because we go into people's homes that are elderly and they're needing home supports, and then they're told it's $65 every time you want to shower. Now, if you have PWD and your income is limited, then those costs get deferred. But for everybody that's been employed gainfully there their entire life, the government is now saying it's $65 for every shower. It's $65 every time we change your pants. And that has never been pitched to the population, right? It's just this perception that healthcare in Canada is free. But it's not when you become elderly and you have additional needs. If you don't have a pension plan, if you're not on PWD and you need a wheelchair, it's a $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, up to $30-something thousand purchase that is just expected to be put onto you. It's just, it's not what people in Canada have been led to believe. So I think there needs to be a huge awareness campaign done by the health authorities in terms of what does aging in Canada look like currently, and how much money do you need to retire with a disability.
So Alex, maybe, is there any comment on, you know, for the aging population? I mean, 64, you know, a lot of people are working till their 70s and there's some obviously not, and I hear your frustration totally. So is there anything that Gord could work towards, or?
It's definitely something that I'll bring back to him. A part of that is provincial as well, and so outside of the jurisdiction, but the impact of federal benefits with retirees and where 65 has been the benchmark, even if it's not necessarily appropriate, is definitely something we've heard about. So it's something I'll bring back to him.
Well, it's interesting. I think it's Bill 31 or 32 that says there's no age of retirement now. Depends which level of government you're talking to. So maybe that could be kind of put in. And with Gord being in the health now, appointed to health, he's good friends with the health minister. They could sit and talk, right? So we do know that they work quite closely together. Desiree.
I was just curious, well, like, obviously I'm in the pediatric side of things right now. And like, if Kiefer needs a wheelchair, it's like, send info, gets like size, all of a sudden the letter comes in, you've been approved, like you're there getting fitted, like it's just a lavish life, right? What do you think the change is? Like what's such the big change when you go into adult? Like it's just the change in funding is the biggest thing. I'm just curious, like what you really think the difference. Yeah.
It's the change of it's the change in funding.
Yeah.
It's the change in the number of providers that are dedicated to the needs of your child. It's the fact that your child goes into a system that includes all disability in the province. right? Whereas in the pediatrics world, they get really slotted into the services that they require. And they have got really well resourced around each of those streams, autism, mobility, respiratory, cognition, and they get great supports. But when you come into the adult service, it's home and community care.
Yeah.
It's one organization that has minimal amounts of therapy contracted, you know, provided by the authority. And they have caseloads in the 50s and 60s of people. So
It's too bad, really.
it's a tough transition. So CLBC has recognized that this is a problem because a lot of the kids that are in pediatric services will require management as adults. And so they go into the Canadian CLBC community living purpose. And so they've recognized this as a huge transition period. So they're putting navigators on these kids when they turn 17 and helping them move through their 18th birthday into the PWD system. But that's one small segment of the pediatric world. It doesn't benefit all. So if CLBC that says government services recognize that this is a necessity, why isn't it a service that's provided for all pediatrics coming into adulthood?
Yeah, no, I agree. I also noticed highly because my son has cerebral palsy, so he was on at-home programs specifically, and then he got diagnosed with autism, and then all of a sudden, all this money rolled in, and I'm like, what is this? It's almost like too much money. You don't even know what to do with it. And if your child's not just specifically like for my son, he's autistic, but he's not like, say, sensory seeking as maybe one would be. But he's also got this mobility delay, but I can't use any of that money towards anything mobility because it's highly just for autistic attributes. But at the same time, you also look at it and there's lots of people that we know that don't have those disabilities like that. Like they're not, like it's crazy. Like you're not disabled enough to collect those. And then there's also people who don't fall into the slots of autism. So they're getting no money. Like it's very backwards. It's almost like it needs to be divvied between more avenues, not just autism. And I'm saying that just about like as someone who's getting all this money in, it's like it's crazy that you just have one diagnosis and then all of a sudden you're getting all the funding and then there's someone over here just not as, you know. Yeah, it's just like it's actually sad. It's like you literally have to be more disabled in order to get more money. Just crazy.
Autism is that's the one diagnosis that draws tons of money. That's very, very effective parenting advocacy. 20 something years ago. And autism gets a rare level of funding.
Okay, Kat.
I won't get into it too much, but I was a full-time RMT working with 2 kids, single mom, and I got sick like super quick, lost the ability to walk, and within 6 months, like pretty much couldn't get out of bed and knew that I needed a mobility aid, and like almost had to move into a care home, lose custody of my kids. I was applying for MAID, like I couldn't get a mobility aid. Like I had to crowdfund for like multiple crowd funds for the mobility aids. This one that I have behind me, like I would have like died because it's so hard. If you have a spinal cord injury, you get a wheelchair. But for some reason, if you get MS or like some other paralyzing disease, I don't know why, but you don't get a mobility aid and the support isn't there. And there was no OTs in Port Alberni, and the OT who was in Port Alberni told me to like, she was leaving and she told me to call CBC. She told me to call like Josie Osborne. She was like, you need to just try anyone you can because you're never going to get a mobility aid. And that's what she left me with. And it was a nightmare. And that's what I've been living with for almost 3 years. This coming up in spring. And I still don't have one.
An additional problem which contributes to what Kat's talking about is the fact that if you go to occupational therapy school and you graduate, you're told you're competent to do wheelchairs, but they don't have a clue. Like I cannot tell you how many bad wheelchairs I've seen provided in this community. not measured, not fit, just kind of selected and given. Wheelchairs in particular are a specialty. So in order for a population like this to receive quality service, it's going to require a therapist that has gone to do extra training and extra coursework and dedicated their life, because it's just too complex of an area to be done by community therapies all the time. Because unfortunately, it's just not done well, which compounds that problem.
Wrong one. Is it David? Did you say? Oh, Deanna, sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment at kind of following off what Kat was saying. For myself, needing a wheelchair, I actually had to depend on our community, and a couple of people actually did fundraising for me in order to get my wheelchair. Trying to get a wheelchair is thousands of dollars. The wheelchair I have right now was $5,600. You know, and even though I work full time, I couldn't afford to pay for it myself, so I had to rely on the help of others, which when you know, you don't like to ask for help. My job as an employment counselor is to help others. I don't want to have to ask for help myself. And I didn't. Friends of mine and actually a client actually started the whole thing, but trying to get help, I couldn't get help from the MS Society. I couldn't get any help from the government because I make too much money. I can't get help with renovations on my home from the government because I make too much money or my husband makes too much money. So it's like I'm being punished for having a disability. And there really is no help for people in my situation that are still, you know, able to work from home. Thankfully, I have an amazing company that I can do that with, but there's no extra help for any type of disability support for me. And I was told straight out from the MS Society that I would have to quit my job, divorce my husband, and go on welfare to get any type of help for anything. So this whole thing, the government, everything is asked, I'm sorry, it's asked backwards for people with disabilities that really need the help.
And I have also heard that, you know, like people in our community that have GoFunds, or they buy something and have a big raffle fundraiser to try to buy wheelchairs. And that's pretty sad when they have to do that. Yeah, you know, everybody here, thank you for sharing your stories, your personal stories. I know it's hard, and thank you for that. I just want to skip over to the city. Sarah, maybe you can help me with this one. When you talk about the sidewalks, I agree with you. There are some sidewalks, especially when you coming off the curb of the lights and stuff. Stamp area is really bad. I've watched people on chairs, and I've already said my piece on that, and it's really hard to change that. We have to look at, we have wide roads, so as we change our roadscape, that will help, because the problem is a lot of the infrastructure, the poles are right there on that sidewalk curb back in the day type of thing, and there's some aging stuff happening, and there are audible signals up, especially in the senior area. We had them put in years ago, and we have a long ways to go. Sarah, do you want to touch on a little bit what's happening with the city and all the master planning?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Solda. And yes, further to her point, we have much aging infrastructure. And I know the committee has heard, I think 2 different times from our manager of infrastructure services, who is leading the master plans process, which of course is a lengthy process to ensure it's done correctly. And he will be coming in the new year again. And one of the first master plans that we're going to be wrapping up will be the traffic master plan. And so that's looking at all of that type of infrastructure in our community. And further to Chair Solda's point is exactly that. When we're redoing a street surface, that's the time that we're able to look at improvements. Not to say that small improvements cannot be made. And I think that, you know, depending on the location and the severity of the impacts, the city is certainly always willing to look at that. So, of course, welcome any sort of feedback or areas of concern. I appreciate the feedback regarding the crosswalks and the audible. As you might have noticed, we have made a great move forward in updating a number of our crosswalks with the pedestrian lighting, which has been significant and also relatively inexpensive improvement. So I've made a note of that because I am curious to speak with our Director of Infrastructure Services to see if there's an ability to add an audible option in a way that we have, done the lighting at a reduced rate. So I'm curious about that. So I will find out about that and get back to the group. But again, I think the city is really looking forward to kind of, we've had different plans for certain areas throughout the community. The traffic master plan is going to address the entire community. And so the hope is that a lot of plans for future capital improvements will come forward with that. I hope that helps, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
And also maybe talk about the parks too, because we have some issues there with the aging parks.
Sure thing. Thanks, Chair Solda. Yes, so as well, we have our Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan. We just had another round of engagement at the City Connect with Your City open house that took place, I guess that's 2 weeks ago now. And of course, there's the general concern of a lack of park structures in the community. At the time of COVID, a number of them were closed down and due to the aging infrastructure of the parks. So council actually has a motion that came forward asking for some at least minimal improvements to a couple park locations in the interim while we wait for our parks master plan. And they've also put forward a recommendation. It's a notice of motion that's coming to the next meeting asking that concurrently a parks comprehensive master plan be made so that we'll know what is going to be coming to the community. And of course, within that lens, accessibility will be looked at. And I know Desiree can speak to her great initiative and presentation that she had previously given to the Accessibility Committee for a proposed accessible park.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody have questions for Sarah before I go to Desiree to speak on it? Short. But anybody have questions for Sarah? No? Okay. I just wanted to let you be aware of what we are doing in the community. We're very much aware that it's not black and white anymore here. So go ahead, Desiree.
I actually just had a question for Sarah. When is that Parks Master Plan supposed to be completed, I guess?
Do not quote me on this, and I will get an answer timeline for the committee, and I can even send that out to Heather to have the committee updated. I want to say that the next round of what we heard will be coming forward in the new year, and so I'm thinking in spring, but I will confirm that.
I didn't have too much to say.
Do you want to talk about your plan?
Yes. Yeah. We have myself and my friend Haley, we created a nonprofit that is called Inclusive Play PA. So we have a walk every year that's to bring awareness about pediatric stroke, which I did a presentation on here before. So we've raised just over $30,000 now. And we're looking to go forward. So we did go to the city, I think it was last September, and gave our presentation, but we never do really ask for anything. So we're in the works of going to the parks ourselves, myself and specifically myself, and just looking at minimal barriers that we face just accessing the park to bring that forward. But we're also working with I can't say the name, but we're working with someone currently who is looking to give us land in order for us to build something with ourselves, and then this organization applying for grants. So we're hoping it's looking pretty promising. So we're hoping to go forward with that because we know obviously we're not going to get anywhere with the city really quick because they're in the midst of their Parks Master Plan and things just don't move as quickly as we like. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to see that accessibility is the forefront of people's minds now when they're doing plans and different things. So yeah, not too much. I mean, nothing has changed in the city. We still go to town to go to parks and different things, but that's just the way it is. So hopefully there'll be something good that comes from the Parks Master Plan.
Alex?
Yeah, just on that, as your organization goes forward with this, something I'd recommend is to reach out to our office. We can file a research request federally and then send you a list of grants for accessibility improvements. And then also, if you apply to any of them, reach out to us as well so that we can send a letter of support.
Perfect. Thank you.
So can the city do that too? Well, as we do our parks?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, reach out to us.
I'm
Got
just
it.
curious, is there a general location of where this land might be donated? Like where in the city would it be located? Ish.
Ish. It would be like this side of town, upper area. It's a land that was donated to a organization. That there used to be a park there and there no longer is. And it's already accessible. It doesn't have like our ideal spot would have been Blair Park. But the land that is currently at this location, we made a proposal to go there and say, hey, like this is kind of what our idea is. And they came back with us saying, yeah, we'd love to work with you. This sounds amazing. So we just have to like get into detail with like what that looks like over time. Maybe put in a request to the city to maintain the park over 10 years, whatever that looks like. And we will still continue to raise money. Grants, I know this organization can apply for grants that we cannot. And then we could apply for other different grants. And ideally, my dream is to have the park kind of community owned, which they do a lot in the States, where organize it like different businesses who want to donate can then donate to say one piece of equipment. And then there's a plaque on there saying like the following people donated to this piece of equipment. But yeah, it's definitely a need that we have, and it's kind of like a passion of ours. So we thought, well, if we can't get anywhere with the city really quick, maybe we look at other avenues, and it's a small community where it gets around. So yeah.
So Desiree, just to add to the city's just me personally, never say never, Blair Park, you might still consider, because you're not going to build it overnight. I'm the type of person that likes things done yesterday. You wouldn't want to be married to me because it was yesterday. So never say never. Okay. Just wanted to put that way. And I don't know if Sarah, do you have a comment on that?
I don't have a specific comment other than to say that I think it's really good timing, because as you work with your partners and with the timing of the master plan and the comprehensive parks plan, then I think it's just a real opportunity, because certainly public input will be a huge piece of that parks plan as well.
Okay. Anybody else?
I do have to go. I just have to pick up my little guy in 8 minutes, so I do need to leave. But thank you for having me.
Thank you for your contribution. Your comments were important. Anybody else have comments? Nope. All right. Sam, Alex, and David, thank you so much. I look forward to getting copies of your presentations and everything like that. And I applaud your passion for what you do, because I can hear it in your voice, how you feel about what you're doing. So thank you very much. And you're welcome to stay if you wish. Any final, go ahead.
Oh, I've got to run over to our satellite office, but I really appreciate being invited here, and this has been really good.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm here.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're staying.
I'm enthralled.
All righty. Let us carry on. So minutes. I need adoption of the minutes from the Accessibility Committee meeting held May 13th, 2025. Somebody want to move that? Moved, and second, Kat. Thank you. And let's carry on. And the accessibility number B, the next page 2, Accessibility Committee meeting held September 9th, 2025. I would like a motion to adopt those minutes. Anybody? Kat, and second. And next is correspondence for information. Heather.
Thank you. So this was a letter received from, an email received from Ministry of Environment in response to an email I had sent to them outlining some accessibility issues with the Cathedral Grove parking lot. So Kat had shared that when vehicles back or park in the parking lot against the concrete parking barriers, it restricts the ability to navigate behind that area where wheelchairs could navigate. And the accessible washrooms are completely blocked by parking blocks. So I shared that with the Ministry of Environment, and they responded to thank us for that feedback and to acknowledge the issues with Cathedral Grove. So they are working with their contractor to sort of come up with some solutions. They had talked about moving the parking barriers closer towards the road to allow more space to navigate, but unfortunately that's not possible because of the congestion in the parking lot with vehicles and RVs and people stopping on the highway. So it's a safety concern. So basically they have received the feedback and are working on solutions, but I do not believe that anything has changed at this point. They asked if the regional district be interested in having a member on their accessibility committee, their provincial accessibility committee. And they also indicated that they're updating their website for each provincial park. They have accessibility information so that people going to these parks can check in advance what the accessibility situation is. Yeah, so I just share that with you for information.
So I think it's important that parks are represented, and so how would we have to make a recommendation over to the ACRD to have someone appointed, or how would that work?
I think we would have to apply to be on that committee. However, I would like to have some internal discussions first before we recommend that.
That's great. Okay, so I'll leave it in your hands then. And we have a transportation meeting, MOT. Are they aware of the issue down at Cathedral Grove? I know they probably aren't the ones to talk to, but they could work in conjunction with.
Yeah, I didn't share this feedback with Ministry of Transportation. However, I'm going to guess that they're going to say it's more in Ministry of Environment's hands.
Well, maybe we could talk to Michael since him and I are chummy at times. Okay, so next.
Yeah, there's one more piece of correspondence. There is a course, if anybody is interested in taking, it's for accessibility committee members. Join effective accessibility committees. It's a 2-hour course. There's 3 modules. And I'm just sharing that for information. If anybody's interested, they're welcome to check it out.
And they just go online. It's a course online. So is everybody aware of that? And if you're interested, you just go ahead and register. Is that correct, Heather?
That's correct.
Any questions on correspondence?
Have you taken any of these courses, or has anybody else?
No, I have not. No.
Has anybody else taken the course at all? No. So opportunities there. And I mean, if you didn't like the first one, you could take a choice of carrying on or not. Okay. Somebody want to move the receiving of the correspondence? And second by Kat.
Yeah, do you mind if I ask you a quick question? Is there any sort of onus on them to have any accessibility to access the washroom there? Because it's actually impossible if you're in a wheelchair. It's completely blocked by the meridians.
Yeah, I don't know what their requirement is. You would think it would be a basic.
What is the
basic need?
Yeah. I'll look into it.
Yeah, I think that is something worth looking into, and it might have been a really good topic with Sam here actually earlier in terms of accessibility directorship and like all the legislation that they've passed, because if you can't access the washroom, then that's a pretty clear issue, and just sort of like quickly looking over the response, like it's again kind of the same story of like, well, we try. And I really kind of tired hearing that and understanding that like the washroom accessibility is just like, that seems very important.
It would be just an easy fix of they would have to decrease the parking spots by one singular parking spot, basically, because that would be.
I wonder if the feedback tool that Sam mentioned would be useful in this situation.
So Heather, to move up forward with this, do you need a motion or can we?
Yeah, I think that's the purpose of this committee, is to make recommendations. So if you feel strongly about something, then please feel free to put forward a motion. Motion could be that the accessibility committee recommend to the board of directors to submit feedback to the Ministry of Environment, acknowledging their response and recommending that at least the washroom issue be prioritized.
Somebody want to move that or change it? Moved by Kat.
Yeah, and also just like one more thing that's specific to Cathedral is that it is the only boardwalk into the woods that a wheelchair can go in, so it's quite extraordinary, or if you want, like for me to access, like there's not a lot of places that a wheelchair can get into. Look at Old Grove, and that's like one of them.
So we give them
nice.
positive and the negative at
Yeah.
the same time. I like that. And is second, any discussion on the motion? Does anybody want to discuss that? No? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Next, requests for decisions. There is nothing.
I just wanted to ask the committee in terms of occupational therapy in the Valley, is there any interest in putting forward a motion with respect to staffing? Because I understand from what David has said is there's some improvements in terms of staffing, but I understand that Island Health in the past has used contract OTs. And I wonder if there's interest from the committee in pushing that forward and, highlighting that this is an important role in our community, and without it, the folks, especially adults with mobility issues, it is really impactful on their lives. So would the committee want to put forward a motion to our board to recommend using contract resources when staff are not in place?
How does the committee feel? I'll move that. As chair, I can move that. Anybody want to second that? Second, and any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
Thank you.
And next, reports. Any reports? Anybody have reports from their organization or anything they want to say? Seeing nothing? Okay. Question, late business? Any late business? Question period? There's nobody online. Is there anybody online?
There's no comments in the email or on Zoom.
All right. Nobody's in the galley. Okay. And motion to adjourn. Okay, and second, and it's carried. Everybody, Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday. Enjoy the season, and we'll send out the new dates and everything. Enjoy. Thank you.
See you guys. Take care.
Bye,
Nicole.